Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Τα προγράμματά μας προσφέρονται σε πολλές γλώσσες. Παρακαλούμε δείτε suprememastertv.com/schedule.
There's a significant amount of messages in the COVID-19 crisis. The way that we raise and interact with and slaughter animals is causing all of this trouble. And while we look to other countries as to where the crisis may have started, what we have to ask ourselves is, are we in the same weak position with factory farming?
Creating a Humane Canada interview with Barbara Cartwright, vegan, part 2 of 3. Continue watching to find out more.
Yakoki means thank you in the Choctaw language. I'm Talico. The people of the Choctaw Nation thank you for all that you do to protect planet Earth and our benevolent co-inhabitants. Compassionate viewers, welcome to part 2 of our 3-part series, Creating a Humane Canada, interview with Barbara Cartwright, vegan. Ms. Cartwright is the Chief Executive Officer, or CEO, of the non-profit organization Humane Canada, a national federation whose mission is to end animal cruelty and promote the protection and humane treatment of all animals. When Canada's humane societies were founded, they had a broad mandate to protect both animals and all those who were considered vulnerable. Barbara explains further.
Is that humane societies were founded to protect the most vulnerable in our society, and that was women, children, and animals. And here in Canada, around late 1800, the women's movement split off. The Children's Aid started and that split off, and Humane Society became synonymous with animals. But we really came from an integrated understanding that we needed to protect all three. And so we want to move that forward, and we want to make sure that each level of our society understands that, and instead of seeing animals as separate, sees our communities as holistic, all together, people, animals, and the environment. An example of that is there's a prevailing idea that homeless people shouldn't have pets. And so if you've ever seen someone who's homeless and they have an animal, it's not uncommon. And the research shows that those animals are often in better condition than what you would find in a suburban home. For example, if you're looking at body condition scoring, those animals, the animals that live with homeless people are with their people all the time. They're experiencing the world all the time, which is much better than being in social isolation when your human goes to work.
Many countries, including France, the Netherlands, Sweden, New Zealand, and Tanzania, now recognize animals as sentient beings. In these countries, animals are no longer considered as property. Humane Canada hopes that Canada will soon follow suit.
Recognizing sentience of animals in our legislative framework is critical. Quebec has done it, which was great. They recognized it in their provincial legislation. And so I think that's a primary shift that we can make. In Canada, we have an ongoing debate because our animal cruelty section of the criminal code is in the property section of the criminal code. It doesn't necessarily mean that an animal is only property or that it isn't sentient, but it does mean that the law views it that way. And then depending on what judge you get, they may view it as no different than a toaster because it's property. So that's the first and most basic, is that we should most definitely recognize them as sentient throughout our entire legal system, so that when decisions are being made about them, they are considered in those decisions. Right now, they're not considered in the decisions that affect their own lives. And so we feel that that's really important, and Sentience is a really easy, simple thing we can do. And as Quebec has shown, the whole world didn't stop. I hear that argument a lot. Well, everything's going to change and everything's going to fall apart if we recognize animals as sentient. Turns out it doesn't, right? It's okay to recognize them as sentients. It's okay to see them as whole beings.
We'll take a moment now to pray for the protection and well-being of all farm animals. We'll be back after this message. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back as we continue our program. In 2019 and 2020, 2 of Canada's provinces passed bills commonly known as Ag-Gag laws. Such legislation potentially makes it illegal for activists to expose animal cruelty during transportation or in feedlots, slaughterhouses, or factory farms. Ms. Cartwright explains why such laws are dangerous.
So right now in Canada, there is no government oversight of farmed animals. And so why we think that Ag-Gag legislation is dangerous and going in the complete opposite direction is because if a whistleblower wants to come forward because they see an act on farm, this kind of legislation would deter them from doing it. But the way our enforcement system is set up in Canada is you can only investigate a case of animal cruelty if you get a complaint. So it's a complaints-based system. If we bring in legislation that chills people from complaining, how will we ever know what happens on farm to animals? So from a whistleblower perspective and a journalist perspective, we most definitely need to protect their rights to be able to report out from farm. And then I would also ask the question, we should be moving towards transparency. Our farms need to be 100% transparent, right? And fully accountable, which we don't have. And if people are going on farm and deceiving farmers and getting undercover footage, and that footage comes out, and in many cases, that footage has been found to have criminal acts in it, and we've seen convictions. My hope and advice to the agriculture community is, when you see that, shouldn't you be striving for even greater transparency to say, oh my goodness, this should not be happening on our farm. Let's open up the doors and make sure this never happens again. Instead, what we're seeing with Ag-Gag is a complete shutting down and trying to hide what's going on. So we need to ask ourselves, why are people feeling the need to go on farm and to deceive, to get a job, and to pull out information and share it with the authorities? Because there's a problem. There isn't enough oversight and there isn't any transparency.
Humane Canada believes that it is essential to educate our children about protecting animals. Barbara and her team are currently working on a strategy to provide animal protection education through Canadian schools.
One of the things we're just working on now is a national humane education strategy, because we have it happening in different places, in different humane societies or SPCAs or rescue groups. It may happen in classroom because a teacher is really interested, but it's not happening in a guaranteed manner, and that we could say every person in Canada has received humane education on how to better interact with and treat the animals that we're surrounded with all the time. And so we're just starting that effort now, and we're putting together a task force. We're studying programs around the world to see where the best practices might be. And then how in Canada we have our education system is provincial. And so it often stops people from having a national strategy. as far as curriculum goes, but we think we can create a strategy that each province can then use. And it is clearly the most important thing we can do in order to change how we're moving forward.
Ms. Cartwright believes that the current COVID-19 pandemic is sending messages to humanity about how we treat animals. She next shares her thoughts on the COVID-19 crisis.
There's a significant amount of messages in the COVID-19 crisis, but it isn't the first. Zoonotic diseases are happening all the time. Ebola, for example. Now Ebola burns out its host, and so it burns itself out a lot quicker than COVID-19. But the way that we raise and interact with and slaughter animals is causing all of this trouble. It's also causing a lot of the deforestation we see, the climate change problems we see. And so COVID should be our opportunity to really step back. We're hearing a lot of build back better. Well, the only way to build back better is to build back more humane. And that is missing in the conversation about how we need to shift all of our systems. And while we look to other countries as to where the crisis may have started, what we have to ask ourselves is, are we in the same weak position with factory farming? Because so much of the disease can spread so quickly in such closed-in spaces. It's the same for humans. We talked a lot about this at the beginning of COVID. When you think about our messages around COVID, it's keep your distance, get outside, eat healthy, exercise. It's the same thing for all mammals, right? They need to have space to not transmit diseases. They need to be in low stress environments. They need to be eating healthy. And so that's not something we're providing them with. So I think the COVID-19 crisis provides us with a great moment of reflection.
Many thanks, Ms. Barbara Cartwright, for conveying these important messages. We wish you great success in your diligent efforts to protect our animal co-inhabitants. For more information on Humane Canada, please visit humanecanada.ca. Precious viewers, thank you for your company today. Please join us again on Monday, January 18th for the concluding episode of our interview with Barbara Cartwright, CEO of Humane Canada. Coming up next is Peanuts Well-Being Sanctuary, a Place of Transformation, Part 2 of 2, right after Noteworthy News. May you be comforted and quickly uplifted by the heavenly inner light and sound.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/GG.